quick shake, and make sure you shake until you get rid of all of the bits clinging to the bottom. I'm about to dedicate 3 hours of my life to mixing shellac. We've got some Liberon garnet flakes here, and I'm going to mix them up. And I'm going to be using rectified spirit, Polish spirit as some people call it. This is what's available in the UK, and it's very expensive because there's a lot of excise duty on it, because this is pure. You could drink this if you really wanted to. You'd have to dilute it down somewhat, but it doesn't contain any of the nasties in it, like for denatured alcohol. Denatured alcohol, same concentration of alcohol, but it contains all sorts of nasty things like benzene and methanol. This is really like methylated spirits, as we have over here, without the purple dye, and I think it's also referred to as industrial methylated spirits. But it's got no water in it, which is important for certain chemical processes, but not so important for us. This contains water, same amount of alcohol, but any impurities in here are mostly water. And it's all nice and friendly stuff and doesn't give you headaches when you're using it. And I believe in America the equivalent of this would be Everclear, grain alcohol. Now the ratios involved are 4:1. So that's 2 pounds of flakes to 8 pints of alcohol for the 2 pound cut, and in metric that's 250 grams to 1 litre. But we're mixing measurements here, we're mixing weights and volumes. Now if this was water, that would just translate straight over from litres to kilograms, because a litre of water weighs a kilogram. But alcohol is a lot lighter, and 1 litre of alcohol only weighs 780 grams. So by weight, we're actually doing 3:1. We're doing 250 grams of flake to 750, 780 in fact, grams of alcohol. So I'm going to weigh it all out, and I'm only going to make a small amount because I'm trying to create fresh batches each time and use it all fresh. So we'll get the digital scales out and get it all weighed. So we're going to measure 15 grams. Oop. My scales aren't particularly accurate. They only measure to 2 grams, so I guess I'm going to put 16 grams in here. That'll do. That reads 14 grams, but we'll put 45 grams of alcohol in there. So by weight, I'm going to put 3 times the amount of alcohol in. So I'm going to put 45 grams of alcohol, although this will probably read 46. I think what that's trying to tell me is it's 45. And that's all there is to it. And now we shake. Now the reason I said I was going to dedicate 3 hours of my life to this is you need to shake this a lot. You don't just leave it. If you leave it, it will take a full 24 hours to dissolve, probably. I can't guarantee it. But what you want to do is you want to keep shaking, because if you leave this, you'll find it all gels at the bottom of the jar and creates quite a mess. But if you keep shaking, it dissolves a lot quicker and will dissolve within about 3 hours. Now, I'm not saying that you need to shake this for 3 hours, but my experience is that initially you need to keep shaking it every 5 or 10 minutes, and then as time progresses, like, you know, you can shake every quarter of an hour or whatever. But if you can keep shaking it, it will dissolve a lot quicker. Another important thing is label your shellac. So I'm going to glue this, tape it onto the jar so that you know what the strength and type of the mixture is you've just made and when you made it. Very important. I've let this stand for 5 minutes, so let's see now. Can you see that? The way it's all gelled at the bottom of the jar? That's what you want to avoid happening, because if you allow that to happen, it all just mushes down at the bottom and doesn't dissolve. So quick shake, and make sure you shake until you get rid of all of the bits clinging to the bottom, because it tends to all stick to the bottom of the jar. If I was to have left that half an hour, it would have been very difficult to get rid of all the bits off the bottom of the jar. They would eventually dissolve, but of course, while they're sitting there on the bottom of the jar, they won't dissolve. So there we go. Now got all the bits. All the bits are no longer clinging, and we're starting to get less bits sticking to the inside further up the jar. So unfortunately, we're just going to keep doing that every 5-10 minutes for the next hour, and then maybe every quarter of an hour, every half an hour from then on. But eventually, and probably after about 3 hours, we'll have the whole thing dissolved. It's now 2.5 hours later, and the shellac appears to be completely dissolved. I've been very careful, shaking it pretty much every 5 minutes, avoiding any little clumping at the bottom and making sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the jar. And I think that is usable. The advice they give tends to be to leave it 24 hours, which I am going to do. But if you're in a hurry, then I think you can do it in 2.5 hours. You can make it quicker by grinding up the shellac flakes with a coffee grinder, but you're still going to have to keep it shaking, because it will still have a tendency to all create a gel at the bottom of the glass, and it will stop it dissolving. You need to keep those particles of shellac moving through the alcohol and keeping the surface area there for it to dissolve. But there we go. I think that's as close as I'm ever going to get to instant shellac.